This is my 2004 Transporter T5. It's done 170,000 miles and it's fair to say it's looking a little rough. Okay, so what's my plan? Well, the bumpers are shot, they're scuffed, they're faded, so it's a simple respray, colour code them, reflex silver, the same as the rest of the van. So it's front and rear. The side loading door on this side, it's a stained and a scrape. I shan't name who it was, but she knows. That's got to be filled and resprayed, and I'm going to try and blend it in with the rear panel. There's other bits and bobs. There's the front bonnet here. It's seen a lot of action. A lot of stone chips needs doing, and there's some scuffs on the side, on the other side as well. So a lot of paint work. I'm not an expert. I've not really done any of this. I bought some bits on Amazon and eBay, cheap gun. I got a cheap compressor, and I thought I'd bring you guys along to see how it all goes. So let's get on with it. So I got me a scrap bumper, and what I thought I would do, because I'm not familiar with the spray gun yet, not fully anyway, not enough to take it to the van, I thought I would take part of this scrap bumper and basically go through the motions of prepping it for paint and then giving it a paint base and a clear coat and see how it comes out. And if it comes out to my liking, then I'll feel confident enough to take it out on my van. Okay, so I got me some detergent. I better give it a clean first, I think, just to make sure paint and everything sticks. So to scuff up the paint that's there, I've got me some 600 grit, which seems to be about what people use, and a soft pad. I've got some wet and dry sanding pads, circular pads to go with my raw and water sander, but they haven't arrived yet, so it's doing it old school for the moment. But this is all right for the test, I think. So, fill it up. So after applying a thick coat of primer, I sand it down with some 400 grit, wet and dry, until I feel it's smooth enough. And then now I hit it with some base coat in my new Sealy gun, my cheap 35 quid gun, and yeah, it's looking pretty good at this stage. So the base coat is down, so now is a quick prep with a tack rag, which is just basically a sticky cloth to get all the dust off, and then we hit it with the clear coat. And this is the first time I've done it, so I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm just playing with settings and try not to lay it on too thick. Don't want it to run, so I kind of like looking different angles so I can see kind of like the reflection on the paint and everything, to make sure it doesn't look like it's gonna be too heavy. And then I come at it with a second coat after about, what do I do, about half an hour, 20 minutes. I think the point of being is that this stuff takes about, well, takes an hour to go off. It's tacky after about 20 to 30 minutes, which means that the second coat kind of gets stuck to the first one, which helps it stop. That basically means that the second coat can go on heavier than the first one, and you kind of get away without it running, and sort of get that glassy look that everyone's looking for. It's still tacky at this stage, but it's not gone down too bad. I think it's looking promising, but I'll reserve judgment until it's dried. So there it is, finished, masking tape off, and I'm happy with the result. I think it's going to be alright. So I think I'm going to basically focus on now prepping the van, and it probably means I'm going to have to take a week off work to really put some effort into getting all the little dings and scratches prepped. But ultimately I think it means that I can obtain a finish that I feel is sufficient to make the van look a hell of a lot better than it currently is. So great, let's crack on then. Okay, so a quick update. I've gone, after a good cleaning process, I've been over this with the sander and a 240 grit, just to take the, I don't know if you can see that, but basically take the top off the texture. I can't obviously get it perfectly flat, but it's the opportunity to take things like these scratches here and flatten them off, make sure there's no high points. And then basically once I've gone through that, I'll go over very briefly with a sanding pad just in my hand to try to get a bit of the grooves. It's quite an awkward bumper, this. It's not that much smooth surface on it, and all these little channels and stuff just make it a bit more of a pain, but we'll get there. I think once that's done, there's also the other bits. I've already done those. These bits here again, more problematic areas. Can't get anywhere near with this random orbital sander in there, so it's all going to be manual. But anyway, once that's done, here's the before. It's had a couple of scuffs on the corners, and most bumpers a vehicle this age do. Once I've done that and I've given it another clean, I'll give it some plastic primer, which is just literally like clear. Well, it's almost like lacquer, but it just goes off like flashes off and just gives it something for the paint to adhere to. And then some high build primer, and hopefully after I take the primer down, most of this will all be gone and it will look smooth. Well, that's it in theory anyway. Watch this space. Okay, so I've spent probably 3 hours on this bumper since painting it. It's dried for 2 days before I let the filler basically went off for 2 days untouched, just to make sure it was nice and firm. It was still before I started sanding it, and then I've been at it with the 600 grit on a random orbital sander, and also by hand, and wet sanded it, which has kind of worked. The random orbital sander worked well, but only does small parts before it all clogs up, and then I'm going through discs left, right and centre. So I then took it to the wet sander, or just wetted it, and that kind of worked better. And for the most part I've got it really smooth, but I think what I'm ready for now is another coat, so I'm going to give it another fairly quick coat, and then hopefully these things like these deeper scratches, which are almost gone, and these tiny little pits, hopefully they'll go, and I kind of want to make sure that this bit here being the top of the bumper, it's kind of the first thing you see. So I want all this to be absolutely spot on, but I'm getting a bit thin on the paint, so I need to give it another coat of primer first. Yeah, and then hopefully after probably another hour or so sanding, here's the side, well, these bits going on here. These bits have actually been taking a bit of a cuffing, but actually the primer's filling them out pretty nicely. I reckon with one more on here and here, they sand it down, I think they'll be alright. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'll get to work, I think. So now that I'm happy with the front bumper, it's time to turn my attention to the rear. And to remove that, you take out the little plastic covers underneath the rear lights, which I'm making a bit of a hash at doing here, but I'm doing it one-handed. That reveals 2 screws, or plastic sort of screws in the top. Underneath the bumper there are 4 screws very similar to the ones at the top, plastic again. The middle one is quite difficult to get to because of the spare wheel bracket. The side of the bumper is held on with 3 screws. 2 of them are visible, and one of them is behind the wheel arch liner. This bumper is really in pretty bad shape. The top of it, basically it looks like it's been hit here, and the bar behind has been pushed in. Well, I'll show you in a minute, and it's kind of skewered it through the plastic. This side a little bit better, but it's just like the holes on the side there where they put mud flaps, and yeah, it's gonna, I think whatever I do to this is gonna improve it, but I think it is quite a challenge. This is the bumper bar, and this here was sticking up, so this bit pierced the plastic. I've pulled it out. Same on this side. It's obviously at some time in its life someone's gone in the side, but I don't think the bumper's ever been off. Everything was all intact. Every screw like the original. Yeah, just another fun part to the bumper saga. Anyway, let's crack on and see if I get this bumper down, and I'm going to give it some, oh my god, yeah, some 180, and then give it a good couple of coats of primer, and hopefully a lot of this will disappear. There's a couple of, I'm considering heating this up with the like a hairdryer and seeing whether or not I can press that flat, and there's a slight kink in it here as well, and I was thinking, now I've got it off, I might as well try and heat it up and see if I can't reform that a little bit better. But what I'm going to do is, when this is all back and done, I want to get I don't know what you call it, it's like a skid sort of panel to go on here, stick on one, partly because whatever happens, with the best will in the world, just putting shopping bags in the back of the van is going to cause this to scratch, so it makes sense to put some kind of plastic protection or something over the top of the painted bumper, because otherwise it's going to look rough again very quickly. So anyway, let's crack on. That's all. Okay, so I've been fiddling around with this, all these bits, bumpers and trims for now a couple of days, and I'm kind of at that point where I'm sort of, I think they call it diminishing gains or something like that. Basically, for every hour of work I put in, I'm seeing very minimal improvement. So do is call it now. I've cleaned the floor, I've hoovered it up. There's no dust per se. Obviously there is, but I've kind of minimised it the best I can. The back bumper, well, this was in a lot worse condition than I originally envisaged or realised. It is what it is. I'm not going to go any further with it. I think we're just going to go with it and see what it happens. If needs be, I can always get another one another time. If I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. Front bumper, on the other hand, now this has come out really well. I'm actually very pleased with it. I've wiped them all down with panel wipe. They come out really, really smooth. So I'm kind of hoping, as long as I don't screw it up, that it might come out all right. I got my rear spoilers here. These are new. I just put some primer on them and then flattened them off. Basically the same with my door mirrors and the little trims to the back bumper, and the other odds and sods have all been flattened off and panel wiped. Everything's been hoovered. I'm basically procrastinating now. I just need to get on with it. I'm just terrified of screwing it up because, one run and I'm basically resorting to sanding it all down again. But anyway, take it steady, and hopefully I'll stick you on time lapse, and at the end of this I'll either be happy or crying. So in the next video I reveal my newly painted bumpers. I attack the rest of the van, including the side loading door. I take the sander to my headlights and then the spray gun. And does all this work pay off and I end up with my dream van? Well, you'll have to find out in the next episode. So if you like the video, please give us a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.